The Grand Ballroom of the Regency Hotel gleamed under 1,000 crystal chandeliers. 700 of the nation's elite sat in silent rows, their eyes fixed on the stage where the Secretary of Defense adjusted his spectacles. The air smelled of expensive cologne and nervous anticipation. This was the Valhalla Gala, the annual ceremony where the country honored its most distinguished military servants. Tonight, they were posthumously awarding the Medal of Honor to Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb. The problem was that Marcus Webb was not dead. Elias Vance sat in the front row, third from the left. His dress blues were immaculate, the 4 silver stars on his collar are polished to a mirror shine. He was 62, but his body was still a weapon, broad shoulders, a jaw that could cut glass, and eyes the color of winter slate. He did not fidget. He did not blink. He watched the stage with the patience of a sniper waiting for the perfect wind. Beside him, his wife of 34 years, Claire, held his hand. Her grip was trembling. She knew what was coming. She had known for 6 months, ever since the first whisper began in the Pentagon's labyrinthine corridors. Elias did not squeeze back. He merely sat, a monument to a war he had won and a peace he could not secure. General H.A. Risen F. Kane mounted the podium. He was 58, florid-faced, with a chest full of ribbons he had earned mostly by standing behind desks. He adjusted the microphone and Clea read his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, Kane began, his voice oily with false reverence. Tonight, we honor a hero. A man who gave his last full measure of devotion in the sands of Amba, our province. A man whose sacrifice saved 12 of his brothers in arms. Elias watched Kane's lips move. He remembered that day. He remembered the IED that had shredded Marcus Webb's Humvee. He remembered dragging the sergeant out of the flaming wreckage with his own hands, the skin on his palms peeling away like wet paper. He remembered Webb's eyes, wide with shock, and the way he had whispered, "Sir, don't let them forget me." They had not forgotten. They had simply rewritten the story. Kane gestured to the side of the stage. A young woman in a black dress walked forward, her face streaked with theatrical TRS. She was Webb's widow, or at least she claimed to be. Elias had never seen her before in his life. Marcus Webb was a bachelor. He had no wife, no children, no next of kin. The woman clutched a folded flag and sobbed into a handkerchief. Sergeant Webb's courage, Kane intoned, his unwavering commitment to duty, his willingness to lay down his life, these are the pillars upon which our great nation stands. And we must never. General. The word cut through the ballroom like a shard of glass. It was not loud. It was not angry. It was simply there, a blade of sound that silenced the murmurs and froze the cameras. Elias Vance rose to his feet. Kane's face flickered. For a tenth of a second, the mask slipped, and Elias saw the raw panic underneath. Then the mask was back, polished and smug. General Vance, Kane said, his tone dripping with condescension. I understand this is difficult. The loss of a man under your command, it weighs heavily. But please, let us honor Sergeant Webb with dignity. Elias walked toward the stage. Each step was measured, unhurried. His shoes clicked against the marbly floor. The audience held its breath. They knew him, or they thought they did. They knew the 4 stars. They knew the legend. They did not know the truth. Sergeant Webb is not dead, Elias said. A ripple went through the crowd. A few gasps. Someone dropped a champagne flute. Kane laughed. It was a practiced sound, a weapon he had used to disarm subordinates for 2 decades. General, I understand grief can manifest in strange ways. But we have the records. The death certificate. The eyewitness accounts. The eyewitness accounts, Elias repeated. He stopped at the base of the stage, looking up at Kane. You mean Lieutenant Colonel Whitmore's report? Kane's smile faltered. The same Whitmore who was court-martialed 6 months later for falsifying field documents, Elias continued. The same Whitmore who is currently serving 15 Rs at Leavenworth. The ballroom was silent. Elias could hear the hum of the HVAC system, the distant clatter of kitchen staff in the back. The report was fabricated, Elias said. Marcus Webb survived. I pulled him out of that Humvee myself. He spent 11 months in a German hospital, and then he was transferred to a classified rehabilitation facility in Virginia. He's been there for 2 Rs. He's alive. He's walking. He's breathing. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. He did not brandish it. He simply held it, flat against his chest. I have the medical records, he said. I have the transfer orders. I have the testimony of the attending physicians. And I have a letter from Marcus Webb himself, written 6 weeks ago, asking why the ARMA is writing him a posthumous medal while he sits in a bed in Bethesda. Kane's face had gone gray. The widow on the stage had stopped sobbing. She was staring at Elias with the wide, flat eyes of a cornered animal. This is a forgery, Kane said. His voice cracked. This is the act of a bitter, broken man. You're a has-been, Vance. You were a great general once, but that was 20 Rs ago. You lost your edge. You lost your nerve. And now you're trying to, General Kane. Elias's voice did not rise. It did not waver. I am still a 4-star General of the United States Army. You are a political appointee with no combat experience, no field command, and a debt to the defense contractors who funded your last election. He opened the envelope. He pulled out a single sheet of paper, crisp and official, and held it up. This is an order from the Joint Chiefs, he said. Approved by the chairman himself. It strips you of your authority to award any medals, commendations, or honors, effective immediately. It also opens a formal investigation into your role in the cover-up of Sergeant Webb's survival. Kane's hand shot out. He tried to grab the paper. Elias was faster. He sidestepped, his body moving with the muscle memory of a man who had dodged bullets in 3 Rs. Don't, Elias said. The single word was ice. It was the voice of a man who had killed with his bare hands and slept peacefully after a road. Kane froze. You wanted this night, Elias said. You wanted the cameras. You wanted the glory. You wanted to pin a medal on a ghost and use it to prop up your sagging reputation. But you made one mistake. He turned to face the audience. 700 faces, pale and rapt. You forgot that I was there. He pulled out a second document. This one was longer, covered in signatures and official seals. This is a presidential pardon, he said. Signed this morning. It absolves Sergeant Marcus Webb of the classified charge of dereliction of duty that was used to keep him silenced for 2 Rs. The charge was fabricated. The pardon is real. He looked at Kane. Marcus Webb will be here in 10 minutes, he said. He's in the lobby. He's in his dress blues. He's ready to walk down this aisle and accept the medal he rened with his blood. Kane swayed. The widow on the stage crumpled to her knees, her face a mask of panic. 10 minutes, Elias repeated. You have 10 minutes to resign your commission, walk out that door, and never set foot in the Pentagon again. Or I will have you arrested for conspiracy, fraud, and conduct unbecoming an officer. I have the evidence. I have the witnesses. I have the full weight of the president behind me. He folded the documents and tucked them back into his jacket. The choice is yours, he said. But I suggest you make it quickly. He turned his back on Kane and walked toward the edge of the stage. The cameras followed him. The audience was on its feet, a wave of bodies rising like a living tide. Behind him, he Kane's voice, thin and cracked, you can't do this. You're nothing. You're a relic. Elias stopped. He did not turn around. 10 minutes, he said that he walked into the wings, the applause already rooting to thunder behind him. In the lobby, a man in dress blues stood waiting. His face was SCA red, his left arm missing below the elbow. But his eyes were clear and alive. Sir, Marcus Webb said. Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. Go get your medal, Sergeant. And he walked out into the night. The parking rage was cold. Concrete and shadows. The hum of fluorescent lights. Elias Vance stood beside his black sedan, his hands in his pockets, watching the exit ramp. He had left the ballroom 90 seconds after giving Webb his order. He did not stay to watch the chaos. He did not stay to see Kane's face collapse or the widow's frantic scramble off the stage. He had done his job. The rest was noise. The elevator doors slid open. A man stepped out. He was tall, gaunt, with a graying goatee and a tailored suit that cost more than most cars. His name was Derek Pemberton, and he was the Secretary of Commerce. He was also Elias's son-in-law. Dad, Derek said. His voice was a whisper. We need to talk. Elias did not move. He watched Derek approach, his footsteps echoing against the concrete. You sent Claire home, Derek continued. She's in a black SUV. She's crying. She's been crying for 3 hours. Elias said nothing. Dad, please. Just listen to me. Derek stopped 3 feet away. His hands were shaking. His eyes were red-rimmed. I'm the one who told Kane, he said. I'm the one who gave him the fabricated report on Webb. Elias blinked. It was the only movement he made. I did it for Claire, Derek said. You don't understand. Kane promised me a promotion. Undersecretary of Defense. He said he'd make me the youngest undersecretary in history. And Claire deserves that. She deserves the house in Georgetown. She deserves the life. Claire, Elias said, has a trust fund worth $40 million Rs. Derek flinched. She doesn't need a house in Georgetown, Elias continued. She has a penthouse overlooking the Potomac. She has a vacation home in the Hamptons. She has a private jet. What she does not have is a husband who sells classified military secrets for a title. Derek's face went pale. That's not what I did. You told Kane that Marcus Webb was dead, Elias said. You fabricated a death certificate. You forged a widow's signature. You altered medical records. That is not a promotion. That is a felony. The word hung in the air between them. Claire doesn't know, Derek said. I swear. I made sure she was out of the loop. She had no idea. Elias studied him. His son-in-law. The man who had married his daughter 5 years ago, smiled for the cameras, and then sta root dismantling the family from the inside. Why are you telling me this? Elias asked. Derek swallowed. Because I'm SCA red. I saw what you did in there. I saw Kane's face. You have the proof. You have the orders. You have I have everything, Elias confirmed. Then you can destroy me. Derek's voice broke. You can destroy all of us. Claire. The kids. The whole Pemberton name. Please, Dad. I'm begging you. Elias reached into his pocket. He pulled out a slim black device, smaller than a phone. He pressed a button. A red light blinked. This is a recorder, he said. It's been running since you stepped out of the elevator. Every word you just said is on this device. Every confession. Every admission of guilt. Derek's face went from pale to gray. The FBI is waiting in the lobby of the Pentagon, Elias said. They have a warrant for your arrest. The charge is a conspiracy, fraud, and tampering with federal documents. The minimum sentence is 12 years. Dad, please, you married my daughter, Elias said. You slept in my house. You held my grandchildren. And you sold out a man who gave his ARM for this country. For a title. He tucked the recorder back into his pocket. That your apology is noted, he said. It's also worthless. He opened the door of his sedan. That the FBI will be here in 2 minutes, he said. You can wait for them, or you can run. But I promise you, if you run, I will find you myself. Derek stood frozen, his mouth open, his eyes streaming with tears. Elias got into the car. He root the engine. He pulled out of the parking space without looking back. The REA review mirror showed Derek collapsing to his knees on the concrete floor. Elias drove out of the GA rage, into the rain-slicked streets of the capital. The city lights blurred past. His phone buzzed in the passenger seat. A text from an unknown number. Kane just resigned. Flew to Zurich. Plane is being rerouted. Elias did not reply. He drove home. The penthouse was dark when he walked through the door. Claire was sitting on the couch, her face buried in her hands. She looked up when she heard his footsteps. Did you know, she asked. Elias hung his coat in the closet. He did not answer. Did you know about Derek, she pressed. Did you know what he did? Yes, Elias said. She stood up, her hands trembling. And you let him sit at our table. You let him hold your grandchildren. You let him. I knew, Elias said, because I planted him. The room went silent. I had a source inside the Pentagon, Elias continued. A source who told me Kane was planning to fabricate a hero's narrative. I needed someone inside Kane's inner circle. Someone close enough to be trusted. I chose Derek. He was ambitious. He was greedy. And he was stupid enough to think he was the one in control. Claire's face went white. You used my husband. I used a traitor, Elias said. He was a traitor the day he signed that contract with Kane. The only difference is that I knew about it first. He walked to the window. The city glittered below him, a grid of lies and light stuff. Derek is being arrested tonight, he said. He'll be in federal custody by morning. You'll need to decide what to tell the children. Claire sobbed. A broken, ragged sound. Elias did not turn around. Your loyalty is your choice, he said. But if you choose him, you choose his prison sentence. I won't visit you there. He walked down the hallway to his study. He closed the door. In the darkness of his office, he sat at his desk and opened a laptop. A video was already loading on the screen. It was the live feed from the Valhalla Gala, broadcast to the world. He saw Marcus Webb walking down the aisle, his chest bare of medals. He saw the audience rising to their feet. He saw Webb climb the stage, turn to face the cameras, and raise his one good arm in a salute. Elias watched in silence. The video cut to a commercial break. When it came back, the anchor's voice was clipped and urgent. Breaking news, Secretary of Commerce Derek Pemberton has been taken into federal custody on charges of conspiracy and fraud. His arrest comes hours after a stunning revelation at the Valhalla Gala, where General Elias Vance exposed a cover-up involving the survival of a decorated war hero. Sources confirm that General Vance has also filed a formal complaint against 3 other senior Pentagon officials for their role in the conspiracy. Their names have not yet been released. Elias closed the laptop. He had 3 more names on his list. 3 more betrayals to expose. He pulled out a pen and a sheet of paper. He wrote, Admiral Thorne, Operation Sandstorm. Senator Blackwell, the Phantom Contracts. Director Hale, the Listening Post. He folded the paper and tucked it into his jacket. Tomorrow, he would start again. The Norfolk Naval Base was a city of steel and salt. Ships lined the piers like sleeping giants, their gun turrets dark and silent. The morning fog rolled in from the Atlantic, muffling the sounds of sirens and seabirds. Elias Vance walked along the pier in civilian clothes, a charcoal overcoat, black trousers, polished Oxfords. He ride no briefcase. He ride no weapon. He ca-ried only a folded document in his inner pocket. Admiral Jonathan Thorne stood on the deck of the USS Constellation, a guided missile destroyer that had seen action in 3 theaters. Thorne was a man ca-reved from granite, broad, bald, with a jaw that could crush walnuts. He had been Elias's protege once. They had served together in the Gulf War. They had red meals, secrets, and bottles of cheap whiskey in the desert heat. Now Thorne was the chief of naval operations, and he had just been named in Elias's formal complaint that Vance. Thorne's voice was a gravelly bark. "I didn't expect to see you here." Elias stopped at the base of the gangplank. He did not bow a road. He looked up at the admiral with the same flat, unblinking gaze he had used in the ballroom. "You should have," Elias said. "You knew I would come." Thorne descended the gangplank. His steps were heavy, deliberate. He wore his full dress uniform, ribbons and medals clinking with each movement. "Let's walk," Thorne said. They walked along the pier, their footsteps sinking in an old, familiar rhythm. The fog parut around them like a curtain. "I know why you're here," Thorne said. "The Webb situation. The files. I know you filed a complaint against me." Elias did not confirm. He did not deny. "I didn't do it for Cain," Thorne continued. "I did it because the mission required it." "Which mission?" Elias asked. Thorne stopped. He turned to face Elias, his eyes harrowed. "Operation Sandstorm," he said. "You remember?" Elias remembered. It was a covert operation in the Horn of Africa, a joint task force designed to root out a terrorist cell that had been targeting American shipping. The mission had been classified, off the books, denied by the Pentagon. It had also been a disaster. "We lost 17 men, Thorne said. 17 of our best. The blame was going to fall on you. You were the commander. You were the one who approved the insertion route." Elias remained silent. "I lied about the route," Thorne said. "I altered the logs. I made it look like you had approved a different path, a more dangerous path. I did it to protect the mission. To protect the Navy. You were going to take the fall anyway. I just made sure it was a controlled fall." "You lied to a court martial," Elias said. "You perjured yourself. You destroyed 17 families' chances at justice." Thorne's jaw tightened. "The families got their benefits. They got their flags. They got lies," Elias said. "You sold them closure. You sold it for a promotion." Thorne stepped closer. His chest was inches from Elias's. "You're a hypocrite, Vance," he hissed. "You think you're clean, you think your hands are pure, you've buried more bodies than I have. You've made more deals. You've traded more favors. You're just better at hiding it." Elias reached into his coat. He pulled out the folded document. "This is a sworn statement from Lieutenant Commander Sarah Webb," he said. "She was the intelligence analyst on Operation Sandstorm. She survived. She saw the logs. She saw you change them." Thorne's eyes flickered. "A tiny, involuntary motion. She's been in hiding for 2 years," Elias said. "She's been terrified of you. But she's ready to testify." "You can't trust her," Thorne said. "She's unstable. She has PTSD. She's a decorated officer with a perfect service record," Elias cut in. "And she's willing to go on the record. In front of the Senate Armed Services Committee." Thorne's face went pale. "The Senate, you're going public." "The complaint was filed this morning," Elias said. "It includes your name, your confession, and your altered logs. The committee is convening in 3 days." Thorne lunged. It was a clumsy move, a desperate, untrained gesture from a man who had spent 20 years behind a desk. Elias sidestepped, grabbed Thorne's extended arm, and twisted it behind his back. Thorne gasped, his face pressed against the cold steel of a mooring Bala Road. "Don't," Elias said. "The single word was iced. 20 years ago," Elias said, "you were a good officer. You had integrity. You had honor. You believed in the uniform. He released Thorne's arm. The admiral staggered back, clutching his shoulder. You buried that man, Elias said. You buried him in the sand of Africa. And you replaced him with a cow. Road. Elias walked away. He did not look back. At the end of the pier, he stopped and pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. It's done, he said. Thorne is broken. He'll confess within 48 hours. A voice on the other end, and Senator Blackwell, Elias Sta read at the battleships in the harbor. The fog was lifting, revealing the cold steel of the fleet. I'll be in Washington by noon, he said. He hung up and walked toward his vehicle. The base was waking up around him, sailors jogging in formation, officers in crisp white striding toward headquarters. None of them looked at him. None of them knew what had just happened on that pier. He got into his SUV and Sta route the engine. The navigation system calculated the route to Washington. 4 hours. He had 4 hours to prepare for the next confrontation. He pulled out the folded paper from his jacket and read the list again. Admiral Thorne, Operation Sandstorm. He crossed it off with a pen. 2 names remained. He tucked the paper back into his pocket and merged onto the highway. The Norfolk skyline shrank in his REA review mirror. The road ahead was empty and gray. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thorne just called his lawyer. He's waiving immunity. He wants to testify. Elias did not reply. He pressed the accelerator and drove faster. The fog burned off as he headed north. The sun broke through the clouds, weak and pale. He passed through small towns and industrial cities, each one blending into the next. He did not stop for coffee. He did not stop for food. His mind was a closed circuit, cold, efficient, relentless. He replayed every detail of his conversation with Thorne. The admiral's flinch when he mentioned Webb. The desperation in his lunge. The fear in his eyes when Elias twisted his arm behind his back. Thorne was not the mastermind. He never had been. He was a tool, a blunt instrument wielded by someone ruder and more patient. Elias knew who that someone was. Senator Robert Blackwell. He reached the outskirts of Washington in the early afternoon. The traffic thickened. The skyline rose before him, a forest of monuments and office towers. He drove through the city streets, past the tourists and the diplomats, past the security checkpoints and the Remed Guards he parked in a Rage the Senate Russell building. He walked out into the cold air and adjusted his overcoat. His phone buzzed again. A different number. Blackwell knows you're coming. He's called a press conference for 4 p.m. Elias checked his watch. It was 3:15. 45 minutes. He walked toward the Senate building, his footsteps steady on the pavement. The marble columns loomed above him. The doors swung open as he approached. Inside, the lobby was buzzing with reporters. Cameras flashed. Microphones bristled. Senator Blackwell stood at a podium in the center of the room, his silver hair gleaming under the lights. Ladies and gentlemen, Blackwell said, his voice smooth as silk. I have called this press conference to address the baseless accusations that have been leveled against me by a disgruntled former officer. Elias stopped at the edge of the crowd. He did not push four-way road. He did not announce himself. He waited. As a United States Senator, Blackwell continued, I have dedicated my life to serving the American people. I have fought for our troops. I have fought for our veterans. And I will not stand by while a bitter old man tries to destroy my reputation with lies and fabrications. The reporters leaned in. Pens scribbled. Cameras zoomed. I am here to tell you, Blackwell said, that I have nothing to hide. I am here to tell you that General Elias Vance is a desperate, broken relic who will say anything to stay relevant. Elias stepped four-way road. The crowd parut. The cameras turned. Blackwell's eyes met his, and for just a moment, the senator's composure cracked. General, Blackwell said. I didn't expect you to join us. Elias walked to the podium. He did not push Blackwell aside. He simply stood beside him, close enough to be heard by every microphone. Senator, Elias said, I have a question for you. Blackwell's smile was rigid. Of course, General. I have nothing to hide. Elias reached into his coat and pulled out a thick folder. Then you won't mind if I read this, he said. The Senate Russell building was a temple of marble and ego. Chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. Portraits of dead statesmen lined the corridors. The air smelled of old paper and older secrets. Senator Robert Blackwell had a corner office on the third floor. It was a room designed to intimidate: mahogany walls, a massive desk, a fireplace that crackled with gas flames. The windows overlooked the Capitol, a constant reminder of the power he wielded. Elias Vance walked through the door without knocking. Blackwell looked up from his papers. He was a silver-haired man in his late 50s, impeccably dressed, with a smile that never reached his eyes. General, he said. To what do I owe the pleasure? Elias closed the door behind him. He did not sit. You know why I'm here, he said. Blackwell leaned back in his chair. The leather creaked. I heard about the gala. Dramatic stuff. Very cinematic. Cain was a fool to cross you. Cain was a puppet, Elias said. You were the puppeteer. Blackwell's smile did not falter. That's a serious accusation, General. I hope you have evidence. Elias reached into his coat. He pulled out a folder and tossed it onto the desk. It landed with a heavy thud. Read it, he said. Blackwell opened the folder. His eyes scanned the first page. His smile flickered. What is this? He asked. Contract records, Elias said. You funneled $72 million Rs in defense appropriations to a shell company owned by your brother-in-law. The company then subcontracted to a firm that supplied faulty body armor to troops in Afghanistan. 31 soldiers died because of that body armor. Blackwell's face had gone pale. This is fabricated. This is the contract's real, Elias said. The shell company is real. The death's real. And I have the testimony of your brother-in-law. He rolled on you this morning. Blackwell slammed his fist on the desk. You think you can come in here and threaten me? I'm a United States Senator. I have immunity. You have nothing, Elias said. The FBI is already on its way. They're in the lobby. Blackwell stood up. His hand was shaking. Why? He asked. Why are you doing this? You've already destroyed Cain. You've already destroyed Thorne. What do you want? A legacy? A statue? You could have had anything. You could have been president. Elias walked to the window. He looked out at the Capitol. I don't want a statue, he said. I don't want a legacy. I want the names of the dead to matter. He turned to face Blackwell. Those 31 soldiers, he said. They had names. They had families. They had futures. And you sold them for a kickback. Blackwell's mouth opened. No sound came out. The FBI will be here in 60 seconds, Elias said. You can confess now, or you can make them drag you out in handcuffs. The choice is yours. He walked to the door. He opened it. 60 seconds, he said. He stepped into the corridor. Behind him, he heard the senator's chair scrape against the floor. Wait, Blackwell called. Wait, I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. Cain. Thorne. The entire network. Just give me a chance. Elias stopped. He did not turn around. You had your chance, he said. He walked toward the elevator. The doors slid open. Inside stood two men in RK suits, FBI agents. He's in the corner office, Elias said. The agents nodded and walked past him. The elevator doors closed. Elias pressed the lobby button. The machine hummed as it descended. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Director Hale is Awari. He's moving to secure assets. ETA, 4 hours. Elias STA read at the screen. 4 hours. He had 4 hours to find Director Hale and expose the final piece of the puzzle. The elevator doors opened. He stepped into the marbly lobby. The tourists were gone. The security guards were watching him with wary eyes. He walked out into the cold Washington air. The sun was setting behind the monuments. The sky was streaked with red and orange. Elias stood on the steps of the Russell Building and watched the city churn below him. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Blackwell is in custody, he said. He's agreed to testify. A voice on the other end, Hale is already moving. He's packing up the listening post. Erasing files. Burning documents. How much time? 3 hours, maybe less. He's got a private jet waiting at Dulles. He's planning to disappear. Elias hung up. He walked down the steps and got into his SUV. The engine ROA read to life. He merged into traffic and headed Tower RD the highway. The drive to Langley took 40 minutes. The forest closed in around him as he approached the CIA headquarters. The guard at the gate recognized him this time. The man did not ask questions. He simply waved him through. Elias parked in the visitor's lot and walked through the revolving doors. The lobby was deserted. The reception desk was empty. The lights were dim. He walked to the elevator and pressed the button for level 4. The doors slid shut. The machine right him down into the heart of the building. When the doors opened, he stepped into a corridor of reinforced steel and motion sensors. The guards were gone. The doors were unlocked. He walked to room 412 and pushed it open. The office was empty. The desk was clean. The computer was gone. The filing cabinets were open and but there was a single sheet of paper on the floor. Elias picked it up. It was a handwritten note. General Vance, I knew you would come. I've been expecting you. The listening post is gone. The files are gone. The witnesses are gone. You have nothing. Elias folded the note and tucked it into his pocket. He walked back to the elevator. He pressed the button for the lobby. His phone buzzed again. Tracked Hale's jet. It just took off from Dulles. Destination unknown. Elias stepped out of the elevator. The lobby was still empty. The security cameras were dark. The building felt like a tomb. He walked to the main entrance and pushed the doors open. The night air hit his face. The forest was silent. He stood in the parking lot and looked up at the sky. Somewhere above the clouds, a plane was carrying Marcus Hale to safety. Elias pulled out the folded paper from his jacket. He read the list. Admiral Thorne, Operation Sandstorm. Senator Blackwell, the Phantom Contracts. Director Hale, the Listening Post. He crossed off the second name. One remained. But he knew that Hale was not the end. He was a symptom. A product of a system that had been rotting for decades. Elias got back into his SUV and root the engine. He did not drive home. He drove to the National Cathedral. The Gothic spires rose against the relais sky. He parked in the empty lot and walked through the heavy oak doors. The nave was cavernous. The stained glass windows were dark. The candles flickered in their holders. The air smelled of incense and old wood. Elias walked to the front pew and sat down. He pulled out the note from Hale. He read it again. You have nothing. He crumpled the note in his fist and closed his eyes. The cathedral was silent. The silence stretched, infinite and cold. Elias opened his eyes and looked at the cross above the altar. He had one more name. A name he had not written. A name he had been saving for this moment. He pulled out his pen and the folded paper. He unfolded it and wrote a fourth line. Elias Vance, the unforgivable silence. He read at his own name. For 30 years, he had known. He had known about the betrayal of Marcus Webb. He had known about the fabricated death certificate. He had known about Kane's conspiracy. He had known about Thorne's lies. He had known about Blackwell's contracts. He had known about Hale's black site. And he had said nothing that he had waited. He had planned. He had manipulated and maneuvered and played the long game. He had used his daughter's husband as a pawn. He had allowed 17 families to grieve false deaths. He had let 31 soldiers die in faulty body rumeur. He had let the listening post operate for 8 years that he had done it all to gather evidence. To build a case. To win a war against the system. But the war had come at a cost that he folded the paper and put it back in his pocket that he sat in the pew for a long time. The candles flickered. The shadows shifted. When he finally stood up, his phone buzzed. The president wants to meet you. Tomorrow. 0800, Oval Office. Elias typed a reply, tell him I'll be there. He walked out of the cathedral into the cold night. The CIA's headquarters in Langley was a fortress of glass and concrete. It sat in the middle of a forest, hidden from view, protected by layers of security that would make a prison more jealous. Director Marcus Hale had been the head of the Directorate of Operations for 12 years. He had survived 3 presidents, 4 congressional investigations, and 2 assassination attempts. He was a ghost, a man who existed only in files and rumors. He was also Elias Vance's most dangerous adversary. Elias approached the main gate in a black SUV. He flashed his credentials at the GUARD post. The GUARD, a young man with a buzz cut and a nervous twitch, glanced at the ID, then at Elias's face. General, the GUARD said. We weren't expecting you. I know, Elias said. I'm not here for a meeting. The GUARD hesitated. Sir, I can't let you call the director, Elias said. Tell him I'm here to discuss the listening post. The GUARD's face went pale. He picked up the phone. Elias waited. The engine idled. The forest around him was silent. 5 minutes passed. 10. Finally, the GUARD hung up the phone. The director will see you in the E-wing. Level 4. Room 412. Elias nodded. He drove through the gate, following the winding road to the main building. He parked in the visitor's lot and walked through the revolving doors. The lobby was sterile, white walls, blue carpet, a reception desk manned by a woman with a placid smile. She pointed him toward the elevator without a word. Elias rode the elevator to level 4. The doors opened onto a corridor of reinforced steel and motion sensors. 2 armed guards flanked the entrance to room 412. He walked past them. They did not stop him. Inside the room, Marcus Hale sat behind a desk the size of a small car. He was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a receding hairline. He looked more like a librarian than a spymaster. General, Hale said. I must say, this is an unexpected visit. Elias closed the door behind him. He did not sit. I'm here for the listening post, he said. Hale's expression did not change. I don't know what you're talking about. The listening post, Elias repeated. A black site facility in the Baltic where the CIA has been running extrajudicial interrogations for the past 8 years. You've been using it to extract intel from foreign nationals without due process. You've also been using it to settle personal scores. Hale leaned back in his chair. That's a very serious accusation, General. You have any evidence? Elias reached into his coat. He pulled out a small USB drive and tossed it onto the desk. Everything is on there, he said. Satellite imagery. Intercepted communications. Testimony from 5 former agents who worked at the facility. Hale picked up the USB drive. He studied it for a moment. You've been busy, he said. I've been patient, Elias said. I've been watching you for 3 years, waiting for you to make a mistake. Hale smiled. It was a cold, reptilian expression. I haven't made any mistakes, he said. He pressed a button under his desk. The lights in the room flickered. The door behind Elias clicked shut. That you walked into a trap, Hale said. I knew you were coming. I knew about the files. I knew about the complaint. I've been ready for you. Elias did not move. Let me show you something, Hale said. He turned his computer monitor around. On the screen was a live feed of Elias's penthouse. Claire was sitting on the couch. Two Remed men stood behind her. She's safe, Hale said. For now. But if you don't hand over everything you have, that changes. Elias read at the screen. His face was unreadable. You think I see about Claire, he asked. She's my daughter. Of course I see But you're forgetting something. Hale frowned. What? Elias pulled out his phone. He pressed a button. On the screen, the feed changed. It showed a different room, Hale's own office. The camera was angled to show the director's face, wide with shock. I've had a camera in your office for 2 years, Elias said. Every meeting. Every conversation. Every order you gave the listening post. It's all on a server in Switzerland, with a dead man switch set to release everything if I don't check in every hour. Hale's face went white. You're not the hunter, Marcus, Elias said. You're the prey. He walked to the door. It swung open at his touch. I'll be in the lobby, he said. You have 60 minutes to shut down the listening post and turn yourself in. Or I release the files to the press, the Senate, and the International Criminal Court. He stepped into the corridor. 60 minutes, he said. He walked toward the elevator, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Behind him, Hale's voice, a broken whisper. Wait. Wait, I can fix this. I can. Elias did not stop. The elevator doors slid shut. He descended to the lobby in silence. When the doors opened, the receptionist was gone. The security desk was empty. The building felt hollow. He walked through the revolving doors and out into the parking lot. The forest surrounded him, dark and dense. The sky was overcast. The air smelled of rain. He leaned against his SUV and checked his watch. 60 minutes. He pulled out his phone and opened the secure server. The files were ready. The dead man switch was a Remed. He had built this system over 3 years, piece by piece, hidden in encrypted layers across 3 continents. He had never expected to use it. But Hale had forced his hand. The director had crossed a line when he threatened Claire. Elias had known Hale would try something desperate. He had simply read for it. 45 minutes passed. Elias stood in the parking lot, watching the main entrance. The doors remained closed. The windows remained dark. 30 minutes. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hale is in custody. He's parading. The listening post is being shut down. Elias read at the screen. He did not reply. 20 minutes. Another text. Claire is safe. The men in her penthouse were fake. Just a projection. Hale never had real assets there. Elias tucked his phone into his pocket. He had known that too. He had known Hale was bluffing. The director was a strategist, not a killer. He had never had the stomach for real violence. 10 minutes. The main doors swung open. 2 Remed agents walked out, escorting Marcus Hale between them. The director's hands were cuffed behind his back. His wire-rimmed glasses were askew. His face was ashen. He saw Elias standing by the SUV. He stopped it. You knew, Hale said. You knew all along. I knew, Elias said. You could have stopped me years ago. You could have shut down the listening post. You could have saved those prisoners. Elias walked toward him. He stopped 2 feet away. I needed your confession, he said. I needed the proof. If I had moved 2 EARLY, you would have buried everything. Burned the files. Read. I had to let you dig your own grave. Hale's eyes were hollow. You used those people as bait. I used your arrogance, Elias said. The prisoners were already lost. I couldn't save them. But I could make sure they were the last ones. I could make sure your operation died with you. The agents pulled Hail Tawa RD a waiting sedan. The director stumbled, his cuffed hands throwing off his balance. Elias watched them drive away. The parking lot was silent. The forest was silent. The rain began to fall, light and cold. Elias walked back to his SUV and got inside. He sat in the driver's seat and closed his eyes. He had done it. He had exposed all 3 names on his list. Thorne. Blackwell. Hale. They were all in custody. They would all face justice. The system would be purged, at least in PA-RT. But he had also written a 4th name. A name he had not yet confronted. He pulled out the folded paper from his jacket. He opened it and read the final line. Elias Vance, the unforgivable silence. He folded the paper and tucked it back into his pocket. He root the engine and drove out of the parking lot. The gates opened for him. The forest receded in his REA review mirror. He drove Tawa RD the city. Tawa rode the lights. Tawa rode the next confrontation. The rain fell hard. The windshield wipers swept across the glass. His phone buzzed again. The president wants to meet you. Tomorrow. 0800, Oval Office. Elias typed a reply, tell him I'll be there. He pressed the accelerator and drove into the storm. Elias drove to the National Cathedral. The Gothic spires pierced the gray sky, their stone faces weathered by decades of rain and wind. He parked the SUV in the empty lot and walked through the heavy oak doors. The nave was cavernous. Stained glass windows cast colored patterns on the floor. The air smelled of incense and old wood. He walked to the front pew and sat down. He was alone. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hale is in custody. He's parading. The listening post is being shut down. Elias did not reply. He read at the altar. The cross hung above it, silver and cold. He had 3 names on his list. He had exposed Cain. He had exposed Thorne. He had exposed Blackwell. He had exposed Hale. 3 names, 3 betrayals, 3 men destroyed. But there was a 4th name. A name he had not written. A name he had been saving for this moment. He pulled out the folded paper from his jacket. He unfolded it and read the list. Admiral Thorne, Operation Sandstorm. Senator Blackwell, the Phantom Contracts. Director Hale, the Listening Post. He took a pen from his pocket. He wrote a 4th line. Elias Vance, the unforgivable silence. He read at his own name. For 30 years, he had known about the betrayal of Marcus Webb. He had known about the fabricated death certificate. He had known about Cain's conspiracy. He had known about Thorne's lies. He had known about Blackwell's contracts. He had known about Hale's black site. And he had said nothing. He had waited. He had planned. He had manipulated and maneuvered and played the long game. He had used his daughter's husband as a pawn. He had allowed 17 families to grieve false deaths. He had let 31 soldiers die in faulty body rumeur. He had let the listening post operate for 8 years. He had done it all to gather evidence. To build a case. To win a war against the system. But the war had come at a cost. He folded the paper and put it back in his pocket. He sat in the pew for a long time. The sun moved across the stained glass, casting shadows that shifted and changed. When he finally stood up, his phone buzzed again. The president wants to meet you. Tomorrow. 0800, Oval Office. Elias typed a reply, tell him I'll be there. He walked out of the cathedral into the fading light. He drove home through the empty streets. The penthouse was dark when he walked through the door. Claire was not there. She had left a note on the kitchen counter. I need time. I'm staying with my sister. Don't call. Elias read the note. He folded it and placed it in the drawer. He walked to his study and sat at his desk. The room was silent. The city lights glowed through the window. He opened his laptop and began to write. He composed a formal statement, a full confession of his own role in the 30-year silence. He listed every case he had known about. Every betrayal he had allowed. Every death he had failed to prevent. He wrote for 3 hours. The words came easily. They were precise and cold, just like him. When he finished, he saved the document and closed the laptop. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. The monuments glowed in the distance. The Potomac glittered under the moon. He pulled out the folded paper and read the 4th line again. Elias Vance, the unforgivable silence. He would hand over the confession tomorrow. He would give it to the president personally. He would accept whatever consequences came. But first, he had one more thing to do. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. It rang twice. A voice answered. General Vance. Sergeant Webb, Elias said. I need to see you. There was a pause. Then Webb's voice, steady and calm, where at the cathedral. Tomorrow. 7 a.m. I'll be there. Elias hung up. He slept for 4 hours. When he woke, the sun was rising over the Potomac. He showered, dressed in civilian clothes, and drove back to the cathedral. Marcus Webb was waiting on the steps. His dress blues were immaculate. His empty left sleeve was pinned to his side. His eyes were clear and watchful. Sir, Webb said. Elias gestured toward the doors. Walk with me. They walked into the cathedral together. The nave was empty. The morning light streamed through the stained glass, painting the floor in blues and reds. Elias led Webb to the front pew. They sat side by side. I need to tell you something, Elias said. Something I should have told you 30 years ago. Webb did not speak. He waited. Your death certificate, Elias said. The cover-up. Kane's conspiracy. I knew about all of it. I knew within days of your transfer to the rehabilitation facility. Webb's face did not change. I know, sir. Elias turned to look at him. You know, I knew you knew, Webb said. I knew you were watching. I knew you were waiting. I just didn't know why. Elias looked away. He read at the cross above the altar. I let them bury you, he said. I let them rewrite your story. I let them give your medal to a stranger. I did it to gather evidence. To build a case that would destroy the entire network, not just one piece of it. Webb was silent for a long moment. Sir, he said, I trusted you. I trusted you because you pulled me out of that Humvee. You ride me through the fire. You saved my life. Elias said nothing. Your reasons, Webb continued, they don't change what happened. They don't change what you did. But they don't change what you are either. Elias looked at him. What am I? Webb met his eyes. A soldier. A man who made a hard choice. A man who's been ring that choice for 30 years. Elias reached into his jacket. He pulled out the folded paper. He handed it to Webb. This is my confession, he said. Every case. Every name. Every silence. I'm handing it to the president in an hour. Webb took the paper. He unfolded it and read the list. When he reached the 4th line, he paused. Elias Vance, the unforgivable silence, Webb read aloud. He looked up at Elias. You're putting yourself on the list, he said. The list is incomplete without me, Elias said. I'm as guilty as any of them. More, in some ways. I had the power to stop it. I chose to wait. Webb folded the paper and handed it back. Sir, he said, I don't forgive you. I don't think I ever will. But I don't hate you either. I understand. Elias tucked the paper back into his jacket. Thank you, Sergeant, he said. They sat in silence for a long time. The sun rose higher. The colors in the stained glass shifted and changed. Finally, Webb stood up. I have a ceremony to prepare for, he said. The president is giving me my medal tomorrow. Elias nodded. Uea renedit. Webb walked toward the doors. He paused at the threshold and turned back. Sir, he said. When you see the president, what are you going to tell him? Elias stood up. He walked toward the doors, stopping beside Webb. I'm going to tell him the truth, he said. All of it. And I'm going to resign my commission. Webb's eyes widened. Resign after everything you've done? Because of everything I've done, Elias said. I can't wear the uniform anymore. Not after what I've allowed. He walked out of the cathedral. Webb followed him. The morning air was cold and clean. The sky was clear. The sun was climbing over the city. Elias stopped at his SUV. He turned to Webb. Sergeant, he said, you're going to make a fine officer. You're going to lead men. You're going to inspire them. You're going to be the man I should have been. Webb shook his head. I'm just a soldier, sir. I'm not a general. Elias reached out and clasped Webb's shoulder. Neither am I, he said. He got into his SUV and drove toward the White House. The streets were quiet. The security barricades were already up. He flashed his credentials at the checkpoint and was waved through. He parked near the West Wing and walked toward the entrance. The Secret Service agents recognized him. They opened the doors. He walked through the corridors, past the portraits and the flags, past the staffers and the aides. He walked toward the Oval Office. At the door, he paused. The president was waiting inside. The meeting was about to begin. Elias reached into his jacket and pulled out the folded paper. He held it in his hand, feeling the weight of the names written on it. The Oval Office was smaller than Elias had expected. It was a room of weight and history, but it was also a room of human scale, a desk, a rug, a few chairs. The president sat behind the resolute desk, his tie loosened, his sleeves rolled up. General Vance, the president said. Sit. Elias Saturday, I've read your files, the president said. Every single one. The Webb cover-up. Operation Sandstorm. The phantom contracts. The listening post. You've exposed a cancer in the heart of our national security apparatus. Elias said nothing. You've also done it in a way that makes me look like a fool, the president continued. You went public. You made it a spectacle. You bypassed every chain of command and every protocol. I did what was necessary, Elias said. The president leaned forward. His eyes were tired, but they were not angry. I'm not here to punish you, he said. I'm here to ask you a question. What do you want? Elias looked at the president. He looked at the portraits on the walls, Washington, Lincoln, Roosevelt. He looked at the window that overlooked the Rose Garden. I want the truth, Elias said. I want it told. I want it told loud enough that no one can ever bury it again. The president nodded slowly. That's a tall order. Yes, Elias said. The president stood up. He walked to the window and looked out. There's a saying in politics, he said. You can have the truth, or you can have peace. You can't have both. Elias stood up. He walked to stand beside the president. I've had peace for 30 years, he said. It was a lie. The president turned to look at him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the president nodded. Okay, he said. You'll have your truth. He walked back to the desk. He pulled out a folder and handed it to Elias. This is a presidential order, he said. It creates a special commission with full subpoena power. It will investigate every single case you've uncovered. And it will do it publicly. Elias took the folder. He did not open it. One condition, the president said. You'll head the commission. Elias looked at the folder in his hands. He looked at the presidential seal on its cover. I've already named myself on the list, he said. I'm a target too. The president smiled, a thin, tired smile. Perfect, he said. Then you'll be the first witness. Elias tucked the folder under his arm. Thank you, Mr. President, he said. He walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. Sir, he said, one more thing. The president looked up. Marcus Webb, Elias said. He's still waiting for his medal. The president nodded. He'll get it. Next week. Full ceremony. I'll pin it on him myself. Elias opened the door. He stepped into the hallway. The White House staff moved around him, busy and oblivious. He walked past the Secret Service agents, past the tourists in the East Wing, past the rows of flags that lined the corridor. He walked out onto the North Lawn. The sun was setting behind the Washington Monument. The sky was a bruise of orange and purple. He pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. It's done, he said. A voice on the other end. The commission approved, Elias said. Full subpoena power. Public hearings. Every name on the list will be called. And your name? Elias paused. He looked at the monument in the distance. I'll be the first witness, he said. I'll testify to everything. My silence. My complicity. My choices. The voice was quiet. You know what that means. They'll crucify you in the press. They'll strip your rank. They'll. I know, Elias said. I don't see a re. He hung up. He stood on the lawn for a long time. The sun dipped below the horizon. The city lights began to glow. The monument stood sentinel in the darkness. He pulled out the folded paper from his jacket. He opened it and read the list one final time. Admiral Thorne, Operation Sandstorm. Senator Blackwell, the Phantom Contracts. Director Hale, the Listening Post. Elias Vance, the Unforgivable Silence. He folded the paper and tucked it back into his pocket. He walked to his SUV and got inside. He root the engine and drove through the streets of Washington. The city was alive around him, restaurants, bars, tourists, diplomats. None of them knew what had happened today. None of them knew what was coming. He drove to the penthouse. The lights were off. Claire was still gone. He walked through the empty rooms, his footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. He sat in his study. He opened his laptop and began to write again. He drafted his opening statement for the commission. He outlined every case. Every name. Every piece of evidence. He worked through the night. The sun rose over the Potomac, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. He saved the document and closed the laptop. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. First hearing is scheduled for Monday. 9 a.m. Senate caucus room. The press will be there. The cameras will be there. Are you ready? Elias typed a reply. Ready. He stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. The monuments were Shah Rp and Clea are in the morning light. The flag flew over the Capitol. The city was waking up, buzzing with energy and ambition. Elias turned away from the window. He walked to his closet and pulled out his dress blues. The 4 stars on the collar are gleamed. He laid the uniform on the bed. He would wear it one last time. He would walk into the Senate caucus room with his head high and his medals on his chest. He would tell the truth. Every word of it. And when he was done, he would take off the uniform for the last time. He would become a civilian. He would become a man with no rank, no title, no power. He would become a man who had finally broken his silence. His phone buzzed again. Marcus Webb is being interviewed on CNN. He's speaking about you. Elias picked up the phone. He opened the news app and found the live stream. Marcus Webb sat in a studio, his SCA red face calm and composed. The interviewer leaned forward, her voice urgent. Sergeant Webb, she asked, what do you think of General Vance after everything that happened? Do you consider him a hero or a villain? Webb was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice steady and even. General Vance saved my life. He pulled me out of a burning vehicle and ride me through enemy fire. He's a brave man. A good man. But he's also a man who made choices. Road choices. Some of them were wrong. The interviewer pressed, "Do you forgive him?" Webb shook his head. "I don't know," he said. "I don't know if forgiveness is mine to give. But I know this, he's standing up now. He's telling the truth. That counts for something." Elias turned off the phone. He stood in the empty penthouse, surrounded by silence and shadows. Monday was 3 days away. He had 3 days to prepare. 3 days to wait. 3 days to face the reckoning. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. The sun was climbing higher. The monuments gleamed. The flag whipped in the wind. He pulled out the folded paper one final time. He read the fourth line. Elias Vance, the unforgivable silence. He took a pen and crossed it out. He wrote a new line beneath it. Elias Vance, the witness. He folded the paper and tucked it into his jacket. He walked out of the penthouse and into the morning light. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. Elias Vance stood in the hallway outside the Senate caucus room, his dress blues pressed and pristine. The 4 stars on his collar caught the fluorescent light. His medals hung in a straight row over his left breast. He had not worn them in years. He had not reneged the right to wear them, not after everything he had allowed. But he wore them now, one last time, because the truth required a witness who looked like a soldier. The doors swung open. The room was packed, journalists, senators, aides, security personnel. Cameras lined the back wall. The murmur of conversation died as he stepped through the threshold. He walked to the witness table. He did not look at the panel of senators. He did not look at the press. He looked straight ahead, his face unreadable, his hands resting flat on the mahogany surface. The chairman gavelled. He rang to order. "General Vance, you have been called before this commission to provide testimony regarding your knowledge of." "I know why I'm here," Elias said. His voice was low, steady, and it cut through the room like a blade. "I'm not here to defend myself. I'm here to confess." A murmur rippled through the gallery. The chairman's face tightened. "Confess to what, General?" Elias reached into his jacket. He pulled out the folded paper. He unfolded it and placed it flat on the table. 30 years ago, I knew that Sergeant Marcus Webb had survived the ambush that was supposed to have killed him. I knew that his death certificate was fabricated. I knew that General Kane was using his story for political gain. I said nothing. He paused. The room was silent. 20 years ago, I knew that Admiral Thorne had falsified operational logs to cover up the deaths of 17 soldiers in Operation Sandstorm. I said nothing. 15 years ago, I knew that Senator Blackwell was funneling defense appropriations to a shell company that supplied faulty body armor. I knew that 31 soldiers died because of that armor. I said nothing. 8 years ago, I knew that Director Hale was running a black site prison in the Baltic. I knew that innocent people were being tortured there. I said nothing. He looked up at the panel. His eyes were cold and clear. I said nothing because I was building a case. I was gathering evidence. I was waiting for the perfect moment to expose the entire network, all at once. I told myself that the ends justified the means. I told myself that silence was a strategy. He picked up the paper. Today, I am telling the truth. Every name on this list is guilty. Including mine. He placed the paper back on the table. I am ready to accept the consequences of my silence. I am ready to face any charge this commission brings. I am ready to testify against every man on that list. And I am ready to testify against myself. He sat back in his chair. His hands remained flat on the table. His spine was straight. His eyes never wavered. The chairman read at him. The senators read at him. The cameras recorded every second. General Vance, the chairman said, his voice hushed, do you have anything else to add? Elias looked at the cameras. He looked at the journalists. He looked at the men and women who would write the headlines. That one thing, he said. The truth is not a weapon. It is not a strategy. It is not a tool for winning. The truth is the only thing that matters. I learned that too late. He folded his hands on the table and waited.